This video is brought to you by Midway USA. Support the channel by choosing Midway for your shooting and outdoor supplies.
So there we were. It was Christmas time, and Henry said to me, "Josh, I have a great idea. This year for Christmas, we should exchange gifts. Specifically, matching MP5Ks. You know, ho-ho-ho-hans and all of that." And while I do my best to generally resist most of Henry's suggestion when it comes to firearm purchases, since, well, frankly, they're never one of my beloved functional and practical AR rifles, well, in this case, I fell victim to the idea. And thus began our saga. Many months of waiting for the federal government to tell me that it was okay to not only own this firearm, but to apply a stock to it as well, since as we know, the stocks are very dangerous. And so, come with me as we head up to Henry's workshop and do just that.
We still the same ones. When it come to chats, we don't take none. Bad man Jamaican. Trinity global sensation.
I don't know about you guys, but I find it particularly inconsiderate that Henry lives so far away from me. You know why I'm here.
Bring. Sorry, it's a mess.
You've been working on stuff?
I've been working on stuff. So I presume that, that's my, it's my Mosin sniper. It's what I keep in the workshop for home defense. Okay, I have some more parts for you. Hello, audience. I've got Josh's K, which is an MKE. Now I have two of these. Let's see. That's the expensive part of the subgun. So we're not doing a traditional style, despite what I recommended Josh that this is one of the coolest loadouts. We're going from standard form to tricked out form. Switching out the handguard to M-lock. We're going to add an SVG. Do we have illumination? I think you have illumination at home. We're going to add the top rail. Top rail is going to be slightly different. This is a BNT style top rail, but his is going to be like full pick. Gives him a little bit more flexibility to it. Vital is going to be the BNT stock. I think for now, Josh wants to try to run the A3 style grip. My recommendation for Ks, really for aesthetics purpose, if you have an SEF style grip, is to use the Navy style grip. Now this isn't a true Navy grip. True Navy grip is, so this is a true Navy grip, this is an SEF Navy grip, and this is an SEF grip. These trigger packs are not interchangeable. This, however, bears resemblance to a Navy pack, but is not a true Navy pack because the internal uses the SEF grip.
But Henry, what about the secret weapon?
Yes, we're going to try the two-stage trigger.
So we know, for me, I'm never going to shoot it with a stock trigger, right?
Yes.
It's the only way that I'm able to be fast. I have to have an aftermarket trigger.
No, these are like personal comfort, you know? I shoot a lot of rounds through these things to develop repertoire with the standard pistol trigger, which I do think the HK triggers, they actually break in a little bit. I think they end up getting lighter, but particularly with the MKE triggers, for some reason they're a little harder to pull than even like PTRs. I don't think I got the rear sight for you because you said you're okay with a castle sight.
You didn't what?
I didn't get the submachine gun rear sight.
What?
You're gonna shoot optics anyways, Josh. It's like you're not an iron sight shooter. So this is the.
I took that personally.
Am I wrong? So this is the typical SEF type of trigger group. You'll see that it is not an ambi system. The Timney system is a drop-in component for the SEF trigger, but you'll see that it lacks the ejector right here. Now, when I was shooting my MKE earlier, I noticed that some MKEs have an issue with ejection and extraction. Unfortunately, my K has an issue with both. So I had to take H and K parts and switch all those things out. So Turkey, not Klaus, Mehmet over there, decided to not use the correct heat treat or whatever. The geometry is a little off with it. So the ejection, instead of pushing it out sideways, kept on getting pushed back towards the chamber. So this ejector is aus Deutschland. You can see, made in Germany. Heckler und Koch. Yeah, better than you. This is the Turkish one, and the latest German one. So we're changing out the ejectors to ensure that it's got decent reliability. You can't really see this one unless you can see it's copper once I get the soot away. But the extractor spring is supposed to be that copper spring. It's supposed to be like this, bright copper. The rifle strength springs are like this. They're like black. And so that's another thing that we're going to switch out for reliability's sake. And so there we go. You can see this is the MKE spring and the MP5 spring. So we have the spring that we're supposed to be using. We're going to use Midwest rail from the Germans. Let's see, there's an MFI rail. This is what I'm talking about. The top rail is a continuous pick rail, whereas the one that I'm using is a single position BNT. This is a nice size. It's got a girth. Mine is less girthy, but longer. These things look cooler with the short ones, but really the classic old school PDW look is like a long suppressor. The tri-lug on here.
Oh, sorry, YouTube.
What happened?
Woo!
Oh, yeah, the tri-lug right here. Some of the MKEs evidently were not machined properly, so we're gonna have to kind of check that before we fire it too. You don't need this anymore. This is pretty tight.
What, Henry?
Pretty tight like a tiger. The H and K's, and you'll see PTRs, they don't have the front push pins. They eliminated it because that's where the full auto series would sit. And that was a design that HK put into the HK94s and back in the day the civilian rifles that they were bringing in here. MKE included that, but still used a semi-auto shelf. So the MKEs can actually use push pin lowers that are from genuine MP5Ks. We have never tried how this trigger feels like. Let's see. Oh, that's good. That's really good. 4 pounds.
Almost exact. Right on.
Yeah.
Let's go.
Really, really good. Let's try it. Where's the other one? Where's my K? 8 pounds. So you remember when we filmed this one?
Mm-hmm.
The PTR, my PTR, of all of them, actually has the best trigger pull. I know people bitch about it, and to be honest, some of those that's kind of founded because PTR decided to use cast hammers at one point. But, I mean, that's just a generation of PTR that use that. So this is like the difficulty of saying, oh, a certain brand is always bad because of this. I'll switch the entire fire control group components out to H and K, just for reliability, just for peace of mind's sake. So my PTR has H and K fire control group inside of it, and that one is. Josh, would you say that's well broken in by me at this point?
We've shot a lot through it.
It's a couple thousand that's gone through, north of 5,000 at this point, I would say. It still works very, very well. And the only thing the PTR had was just some of the rivets that were improperly riveted. But the other day when we were filming the two of them, the PTR, like, I could just go. I could just blast, and it would just continue to go really, really fast. But that's a broken-in trigger. This is a not broken-in trigger, and it's going up at 8 pounds exact. So it's also 8 pounds, but it's a lot crisper. So then, all right. So the claw mount, this one. The claw mount, if that doesn't suit your style to be the MP5K sniper, you've got the BNT style with a single red dot sight, or this is fairly minimalist, so there's less snag points around. Or you could also use the BNT, like the full top. This is a dual use HK 33 and MP5, but this is a bit too much for
A little chunky.
MP5K. Yeah, it's a little bit too much. So a good compromise on that. In one, being low profile, but two, also giving enough rail space for Josh to work with if he wants to work with different stuff, is to use the MFI rail. MFI has a nice relief right here to where it's cut downwards, so that kind of helps eliminate you chopping your fingers when you're dealing with a charging handle. The other thing is if you use like a small RMR footprint, there's enough space for you to manipulate this thing. And really, I know some guys talked about manipulating like this. That's just a little bit too much, too clunky for me. I still like using my trigger hook. Just like hook in and lock it upwards. But then right now, whenever I go back into battery, I just use my thumb to flick it. I don't really have to, chop it or whatever. So, MFI?
Let's do it.
That's pretty good. So, mission success. We've got the SP5K that is in MP5K PDW, the traditional loadout. So, vert grip, choke stock, long suppressor. And then Josh he chose the tri-lug, which my second MP5K chose to not use a tri-lug to maximize the packability. I know it's just that much, but it's less snag when you put it into a bag. I'm sure Josh is going to put illumination devices on it afterwards because, as you can see, is currently slick. Both of us are using SVGs. Both of us are using the finger preserving device in the front. 30 round mags. Maybe Josh is going to switch over to the SEF Navy style mag or pistol grip later on. Both of them using BNTs. And because Josh doesn't care as much about iron sights, we've got the stock Castle iron sights. They work. Not the best. Whereas mine, I have an option of just dropping the top rail and using pure iron sights on the PDW to kind of slick down even more. But Josh has an MFI rail that has more options for more different types of optics. So, look at that thumb clearance.
Clearance. It's got clearance. It locks open. Yeah, baby.
Sniper MP5.
Pew.
Short mags are actually really good for MP5Ks. I mean, all jokes aside, because you're trying to maximize on the packability. Let's see. 5 pounds. Add a little optic on there. Yeah, so almost 6 pounds right there. Mine, with the T2 and the illumination, 6.5 pounds or so. And the old school P5K PDW.
Canon. Sorry, YouTube.
£7, 2.2.
And with the can off.
So one thing people don't realize is actually how heavy these choke stocks are. you'll notice that this configuration, weight-wise, is similar to this. But you can see the amount of capabilities that's built into this versus this. Now this is more balanced because the choke stock's actually fairly heavy. There's like metallic internal structure to it. But again, this is a 1990s concept, and this is 2023. Yeah.
All right, Henry. Thank you for your help. Now, off to the range.
We MP5.
He's quiet yet. Alright guys, we're back out on the range from the workshop. Henry has done his magic and we've made a few quick adjustments, just fiddling around with the gun, feeling what works and what doesn't, and really what I'm trying to achieve out of this setup. Made two primary adjustments. The first was the optic, and the second was how I adjusted the accessories on the front end rail, and we'll get into both of those things here really quickly before we get to shoot. First and foremost, you'll see we've put on a slightly larger optic, gone from one of the micro dot sights, sort of like the Trijicon RMR Holosun sights that we had on here, and we've gone on with the Aimpoint T2 on a ScalarWorks mount. This is a riser mount here that's at absolute co-witness, so about 1.45, 1.5 inches above the rail height. The reason here is that for me as a shooter, I am trying to maximize the shootability of this setup. So when I am on the B&T stock, right about there, without having to drive my head down into the sights, right about here, I've got that dot centered up in the window. So a pretty good height for sort of a pseudo chin cheek weld for me. Now, if you contrast this against how Henry has his K configured, and something we actually talked about in the MP5K classic video, Henry's got this lower down on his particular setup. Again, this is a balance and a contrast between maximizing it for shootability, which is in this configuration, or in Henry's configuration, maximizing it for packability or concealability, where the higher you make this, the harder it is to fit into certain objects and the more snag potential you have when you're taking it out of a bag, something of that nature. Now, when we get onto the front part of the gun and on the rails with the accessories, we specifically are going to talk about the light setup, which is obviously something we've added. Now, I've settled on sort of a compromised position here between how Henry runs his setup, again, maximized for concealability and packability in the bag, sitting further back, more flush with the end of the rail system and where the muzzle is on his particular K. He has a flat, flush front K with no tri-lug, so he needs that light sitting further back so we don't have something sticking out, making the overall package longer than it needs to be. Conversely, I also tried setting up the light setup here with a T-Rex Arms light bar sat in this M-lock position, which basically sits the light about out here. And I was trying to do that so I could use a sort of click cap or push cap rear, standard on the M300s, as opposed to having to use a light switch setup. Because again, on these MP5Ks, rail space is extremely hard to come by. And having a light switch setup, well, it's cumbersome and it's sort of hard to find something that works. I didn't necessarily dislike that option, but what I found is I was really busting up my hand as I was driving up sort of into that light setup, and it was cutting up the web of my palm. So I wasn't a huge fan of that position. It also made the overall front end of the gun a little bit too wide for my liking, because the T-Rex arm light bar is designed to move the light off of the side of the gun so that it can be run with a suppressor without the light basically touching up against the side of the suppressor. You have it where it's then adding a little bit too much girth for what I was after. So again, compromised here with an Arasaka inline mount pushing the light slightly further forward in front of the muzzle. If I'm shooting without a suppressor, it's fine, but because I am shooting this predominantly suppressed, it's a sort of perfect middle ground for me in terms of balancing the concealability with the shootability. With that said, let's finally go shoot this thing.
716, this is Steel Knight 6, 4 Vic, 8 packs, Redcon 1, green to green, how copy, over?
Steel Knight 6, this is 716, roger, over. 16, Steel Knight 1, 1 pack, green, green, over. This is 716, roger, over.
16, Steel Knight 2, 1 Victor, 2 packs, Redcon 1, over.